So in today's video, we are going to be discussing where I think Deshaun Watson should be traded. Now, before we get into the video, please consider liking and without wasting any time, let's get right into the video. Now, with the news coming out that Deshaun Watson has resolved at least the criminal issues in the situation that he was dealing with for the past year or so, the question started to arise of where should Deshaun Watson be traded to. Now, obviously, the civil issues might still have to get figured out, but all signs are looking good, like he's going to be able to possibly play next season now that these rumblings are coming out that teams are interested in trading for Deshaun Watson. Now, obviously, we have to specify when Deshaun Watson is eventually traded, it's not going to be to just some random garbage team. It's going to be a Deshaun Watson's choosing because he has a no trade clause. So whenever I made this list, I had to keep in mind the no trade clause, but I also believe that looking at some of these teams that I have written down, I feel like even with the no trade clause, I really don't think it would be an issue of these teams and Deshaun Watson possibly going to these teams. But if you look at Deshaun Watson as a quarterback, the dude is extremely gifted. He's a top 5'10" quarterback. Whenever he is on the football field, he has amazing he's a very versatile quarterback. He's an amazing passer, one of the better passers in the NFL, and he has great mobility, something that is very rare to have both of those traits. Watson, phenomenal passer, phenomenal runner. So whoever gets him, they're going to be able to have an offense that is very, very good, very versatile, and they will be able to have a very creative, very fun offense to watch. Now, obviously, he didn't play last season, but again, when he plays, he's great. He's a 68% career completion percentage. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. And in the last full season that he played, he was nearly a 5,000-yard passer. He had 4,823 yards in 2020 with Houston, 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Now, you would think that would resonate to a good record for the team, but it wasn't. The Texans were a garbage football team, and they finished that season 4-12. But none of that was Deshaun Watson's fault, if you ask me. It's really not. If you're throwing for almost 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, there is something deeper wrong with an organization than the quarterback. Now, if we're just going to ignore all the legal side of things, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I wouldn't want to play for the Texans anymore. Like I said, ignoring the legal issues and everything else that went along, just for this alone, like there is no reason for him to ever play for the Texans again. A 5,000-yard passer, literally putting up MVP level numbers, and your team only goes 4-12. That's hideous. That's ridiculous. That's terrible on the franchise there. And again, like I said, it's not his fault. He's been sacked 62 times, 44 times, and 49 times, and those were in back-to-back season. So he never had a good offensive line. He was literally just looking at his numbers that he had, and then looking at the number of times that he's been sacked, he is literally carrying the offense. I think he had Brandon Cook, Will Fuller, and Randall Cobb on the team at one point, but a terrible offensive line like that, I don't care if you have Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, whoever as your weapons, you're constantly in trouble. So even with those weapons, the fact that Deshaun Watson was running for his life all the time and put up those numbers are impressive, and I think that'll interest any team that sees those numbers and are like, okay, we need a quarterback. So that comes back to the question, who should trade for Deshaun Watson? Now, I have 5 teams. Originally, I had 8, but I crossed off 3 of them. But I am down to 5 teams that I think would be a good fit and where Deshaun Watson should go if he is eventually traded. The first team I have is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he didn't have a good offensive line in Houston, and I think he needs an upgrade at offensive line. But Mike Tomlin as his head coach, I think it's everything that Mike Tomlin wants in a quarterback. Mike Tomlin even said, like, he was going after Malik Willis at one point. Now with Deshaun Watson finally on the market and someone that the Steelers could trade for, I think this would be the perfect fit for the Steelers. It's everything Mike Tomlin wants. It's a versatile quarterback who's an elite level passer, can use his legs to extend plays, and you can have designed quarterback runs out of it. So now you have a quarterback that can do 2 very important things that seem to be key in today's NFL, because yes, you still need that elite passer, but these quarterbacks are even more athletic than they ever have been in the history of the league. And now that you have a guy like Deshaun Watson on the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have everything that Mike Tomlin wants. And I think just based on that alone, I think that would be a great fit for Deshaun Watson. Now, the next team I have written down is the Cleveland Browns. Now, some people might question that, but this is purely off the fact that the Browns won an upgrade at quarterback. They went from a team that were at an all-time high, beating the Steelers in the playoffs, to the next season not even making the playoffs. And if I'm Kevin Stefanski, if I'm the Browns organization, to go from where they were the year before to not making the playoffs, that's got to be a little bit frustrating for them. And so I can understand, yes, Baker was injured last year, but they want an upgrade at quarterback, somebody that they know that can consistently do things for them and help them make the playoffs. They have the talent, they have the defense, they have the offensive line, they have the run game, and even with Odell Beckham Jr. gone, I think somebody like Deshaun Watson can still get great usage out of all those weapons, and I think he would be a great fit in Cleveland with Kevin Stefanski, and I think him going to Cleveland will help Cleveland. I know they got over that hump and got a playoff win, but I feel like Deshaun Watson going to Cleveland can help him get over that hump even more and go deeper and make a deeper run into the playoffs. My next team that I have written down is the Indianapolis Colts. Now, obviously, they're on this list because they need a quarterback. They literally just traded away Carson Wentz. So the fact that the Colts are sitting there willing to not have a quarterback is just absolutely insane to me. So obviously they're in the market for a quarterback, and the market is kind of weak. What are you going to do? Mitchell Trubisky or Deshaun Watson? They took on Carson Wentz's terrible contract. I feel like they'll be willing to take on Deshaun Watson's terrible contract. So I don't think that's really an issue for the Indianapolis Colts. And I think the Colts desperately need an upgrade at quarterbacks. Everybody says that the weapons that Carson Wentz have weren't very good. Michael Pittman, Zach Pascal, he thought they weren't very good. But I think Deshaun Watson is plenty good to have of a quarterback to elevate those guys around him. And then add on the fact that they have a dominant running back in Jonathan Taylor, who, as much as Deshaun Watson doesn't need to feed off a run game, he can be a strict passer and still put up unbelievable numbers, almost 5,000 yards passing. I think that's just going to elevate Deshaun Watson's game no matter who's at wide receiver for him, and they have a better offensive line than they had in Houston. So I think that would be a perfect fit for Deshaun Watson. And I really do think that if Deshaun Watson was the Colts quarterback last season and was playing, I really do think the Colts not only would be in the playoffs, but they definitely wouldn't have a 9-8 record. They would be so much better than 9-8. So I think the Colts would be a great fit for Deshaun Watson. The third team I have written down is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, to some people, this one might actually make the most sense out of any team possible, and that one I completely understand. I believe wholeheartedly that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a plug-and-play franchise. They literally just have to put Deshaun Watson into the offense, and they will instantly become the Super Bowl contenders still. I really do believe that. Now, when we're talking about Deshaun Watson, we have to assume that he's going to come back and play at the level that we know he can play. I have worries about Deshaun Watson coming back. I really do believe that there is a chance that he's going to not come back and look like the guy that we saw in his last year with Houston. I believe that to be the case, that's a chance. But I also think that we know his talent. We know what he can do. He came out of the same draft class as Patrick Mahomes. You know, him and Mahomes get compared neck and neck. He didn't get talked about last year because he didn't play. But you put him in Tampa Bay, those talks of Patrick Mahomes versus Deshaun Watson will heat up instantly if he's back to his normal self. Again, I think they're a plug-and-play franchise. Great offensive line, great defense, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans as their wide receivers. So he doesn't have to elevate the receivers. They're already there. They're already elite. And I really do think, and especially in Bruce Arians' offense, where it's a risk-it-biscuit kind of offense, whatever, risk-it-no-biscuit offense, that they plug Deshaun Watson in, and I really think they're going to be a great team because, as I mentioned, 7 interceptions. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's not a turnover machine. So in Bruce Arians' kind of offense, and you're not turning the ball over, that's going to be one heck of an explosive offense, and it'll be very entertaining to watch every Sunday. And the final team that I have written down where Deshaun Watson should be traded to is a team that everybody's actually talking about the most, and a team, and it makes sense in my mind. I really do think this team makes complete sense. It's the Carolina Panthers. They they need a quarterback. Sam Darnold's obviously not the answer. Cam Newton's not the answer. They're going to be in the market for a quarterback. Like, they desperately need a quarterback. They started off the season last year, I think it was 3-0, 4-0. They started off the season okay, and they just fell off a cliff late in the season. They won like one game, or they lost their remaining like 11 games. They were terrible down the stretch, and it wasn't because of their defense. They have an elite level defense. They have definitely a playoff level defense. They don't have a quarterback. They do not have a quarterback. And so if Deshaun Watson does eventually decide to go to another team, I think the Panthers would be a great team to go to. I know there were rumors or reports that Christian McCaffrey is going to be traded, but if Deshaun Watson does go to the Panthers, I don't think Christian McCaffrey is going to be traded. Now, the Panthers desperately need an upgraded offensive line. Their offensive line is a dumpster fire. It's a mess. It is terrible. They need an upgrade really, really bad. But I believe that they'll address that in the draft. But if they have Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, and DJ Moore, those are three. One, you have an elite level running back when he's healthy. You have Robbie Anderson, who is definitely a good, solid piece to that offense. And then you have DJ Moore, who is a 1,000-yard receiver. And you add Deshaun Watson as their quarterback. And Matt Rule, as much as of a terrible head coach he is, I don't really think Matt Rule is really the answer as an NFL head coach. But I think that Deshaun Watson's going to make Matt Rule look better than what he actually is. I really do think that they put Deshaun Watson in that Carolina offense. I think great things will happen. You look and saw what he did without an offensive line in Houston. And then you add on top of that there's a really good defense that the Panthers have. So I really do think that the Panthers would be a great spot for Deshaun Watson to go. But those are the teams that I think Deshaun Watson should go if he decides to be traded. Give me the teams down below of where you think Deshaun Watson should be traded to, and I'll see you in the next one.